Welcome once again, everybody, to Humminbird Hub, another sizzling hot podcast with inspirational human beings that are eager to share their stories and eager to share the information. Matheo Galatis, thank you so much for being here with us. Matheo is a personal development coach with a lot to bring to the table. So, Matheo, I'm going to give it over to you just to give it a little bit of an introduction, what you are about, what you're here to share with the audience, and how it can be of value to them.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Pleasure.
I'm very happy our energies have aligned. So, background.
Yes.
I was born in Cyprus and moved to South Africa at the age of 5, where I grew up.
Wow. 5 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
I packed the bags and I told my parents we need to go.
Was that so? Did you buy the tickets as well?
Yeah. Past life. Yeah. So we moved to South Africa. My parents were looking to have a better opportunity than what was available here. And my journey began there. And it was a journey of, even from that age, finding myself.
From the age of 5?
When I look back, that's what it was. Yeah, when I look back in retrospect, that's what it was. And understanding who I truly am. Because that's been my journey over time. I, after school, trained up as a chartered accountant. So I studied as a chartered accountant, qualified, worked in the industry for some years, maybe 5 years, just under 5 years, 4 years. And even while I was working as an auditor, I lost my soul. I lost myself. It wasn't me. When so I had strengths in business and accounting when I was in school, and I did the aptitude test, and the aptitude test said chartered accountant, and I was like, I want something more. I want to work with people. I want to deal with psychology. I want to learn nutrition. I want to do all these things. But kind of my path and my decision, I made my own decision as well to go the accounting route. It was just where safety was, where strengths were.
I was just going to say, yes, the safety part.
And after studies, I just found myself losing myself. I wanted to go back after a year of working as an accountant. I wanted to go back and be a waiter because there was more action. I could connect with people. I was more passionate. I had more energy. So I really loved being active and being out there, being connected with people rather than being in front of a computer screen. And in the final years before I left the profession, I remember sitting at my office, staring at the screen and literally falling asleep. I decided this is not for me anymore. I've tried, I've worked, I've done here and there. And I decided that 1st of July 2009, I walked away. By then, I'd done a number of personal development programs, a lot of personal transformation, a lot of healing. I trained up in certain forms of psychotherapy, one specifically called family constellation therapy, which I actually formally trained in 2010. And in 2009, I embarked on the journey of becoming a coach, qualified as a coach in 2010. And those two pillars, along with certain other things that I studied in human development and everything else that I built over the next 10 years, kind of created the foundation of what I do today and what I want to bring to the world.
Interesting. But when you have felt that kind of like switch, right? When you said it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
When it was just getting boring. What is that motivation? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that, especially people in the personal development, because one of the first choices that people mostly make is the safe choice, right? Because there is the conditioning, there is this way that the system works per se, that there is, even especially the generations before us, the parents and the grandparents before us, that kind of lay down certain expectations for us, right? I can say it from my experience for sure, So then that switch, it's what I would call a leap of faith, right? So it's kind of like challenging It's challenging yourself beyond what you know. It's challenging the people around you who have been a massive component towards your self development to actually accept that there is a new way to go. And I applaud you because, especially people from Cyprus, which I mean, I love living in this island and I really do appreciate their culture. But the personal development part is not the most developed part of
Locally,
Cyprus.
yes. Yeah.
So I would love to know what happened. How did your parents, how did your surroundings react when you decided, okay, listen, I'm not going to be chartered accountant. It's not going to be safe anymore, guys. I don't know where I'm going to go, but this is what the route I'm taking. What was the reaction? I can see by that sigh it wasn't easy.
No, I actually, it was easy. For me, it was.
Oh,
My parents always allowed me to follow my own path
Fantastic.
and make my own choices and kind of backed me. So by then my mother had already passed away, so she had no say and she would have supported me anyway. My dad also, actually, I didn't even ask for his opinion, advice, or anything. I just I did two things. I looked at the symptoms that were happening outside of me and inside of me, like how I was feeling emotionally, how was my thought patterns, and I realized that something's not working. Yeah, this environment's not working for me. And I also looked at what are my desires, what do I want, and what's true for me, and that the environment in the corporate world just wasn't true. There's many benefits, great value of being in that environment. I never really found my place there. So, I decided, okay, it's time to walk away. I'd done enough personal development to understand that I know what I'm doing. I know myself. It wasn't easy, and I fell in the trap. I had saved a year's worth of income to back myself, or year's worth of expenses. And I got to a point where I wasn't ready as an entrepreneur. I wasn't ready emotionally. I wasn't ready psychologically. There were a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for, and a lot of things personally that I hadn't dealt with on an energy perspective. So I didn't have the emotional and personal power to pursue what I wanted to do. So I needed to go and reach rock bottom, even though the environment around me didn't respond, but I responded. I needed to reach rock bottom after about 10 to 12 months from leaving my career and starting from the beginning again. So, the journey wasn't easy.
Incredible. Yeah. That's incredible. But I would imagine that South Africa is a little bit more of it gives a little bit more of the support in a certain way of kind of trying out different avenues, right?
Yeah, there's the market is a lot more open to entrepreneurship and independence and all of that. But there's still a lot of people remaining in jobs even though they don't want to.
So you didn't have that much of an influence of a separate background onto your...
Yeah, luckily by that time I'd worked through a lot of that. I worked through a lot of belief systems, so I was ready to move on. And I was quite open-minded, plus my parents were quite open-minded. Incredible. So I was fortunate in that way that I wasn't influenced that much. And
so it gave you a chance to kind of flourish. But yet you still kind of wanted to shed the light on the belief systems, for example. Like how do you see the belief systems actually affect our day-to-day life? How is working with the belief systems helping us to kind of get to our objectives?
Yeah.
How do you help? What kind of tools?
When I began my personal development journey, I thought belief systems were belief systems. As you know, when you read a book, you hear about belief systems. That was the early stages of my journey. I thought, okay, we have a subconscious mind and that houses belief systems, and we can go in there and start to rewrite them and transform them, etc. In the last 4 years, I trained up in another process dealing specifically with beliefs, and I got to realize that beliefs are way more entangled inside of us than we think. So there's beliefs behind beliefs behind beliefs behind beliefs.
So there's depth to each belief.
Yeah. Wow. So you might find just trying to think of an example, but you might find a belief of I'm not worthy. And the belief of I'm not worthy, the way to deal with beliefs is finding the belief, the origin of the belief, and the emotional charge that existed at the time the belief originated. So just understanding a belief isn't going to help. Understanding that a belief system exists through the mind isn't going to help. I realized for myself, I knew a lot of answers for myself, but transformation wasn't happening. The moment I went inside the body and I accessed the belief on an emotional and cellular level, at the time it was originated, that's when I started to become aware of how it originated, when it originated, and it started to transform itself through awareness. What we also do is we hold on to beliefs because there's a payoff. There's a benefit to having a belief. So a lot of times we think, I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing that. But there's a payoff for having certain behaviors, certain habits, and certain beliefs. So if we don't understand why we're doing it, what are the benefits to us? So as a child, we might have allowed ourselves to not express ourselves, to not speak up, because the payoff is I won't get hurt. If in my case, I had a very strong father. He was military type. He used to have a lot of aggression when we were younger. So I was afraid. I had a fear. And just imagine, if I speak up against this man as a 5-year-old, 3-year-old child, I would risk endangering my life.
It's literally facing death.
Yeah. He would scream at me. He would shout. I wouldn't know. So I developed a belief my father's unstable. I'd rather keep quiet so that I can remain safe and protected, because I felt unsafe, unprotected. Yeah. So these are the kind of beliefs that we build. Now, how did I get to that point to realize I'm not safe, I'm not protected? Well, I started at the top and seeing, okay, what triggers are happening in my life? What belief systems could be there? And I started digging into the emotional body and feeling and going back to memories and understanding how it is. There's a process to doing it. It's like peeling an onion. It's like when you're doing a liver detox or a cleanse, the liver cleanses in stages. It doesn't, you can't clean the whole liver at once. So you clean the top part and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper layers. And it might take time. So the same with beliefs or anything else you want to heal internally. So I found great value in dealing with beliefs specifically, because the moment we allow ourselves to shed the beliefs, because they're outdated. They were relevant at a point in time. 2 years old, 3 years old, they kept us safe, they kept us operating, they kept us sane, they kept us focused, whatever it is. There were benefits to having those beliefs. But the moment that the time frame of that belief expires, then we don't need that belief anymore. But we haven't learned in our society, we haven't been trained how to transform beliefs, how to transform ourselves over time, how to process emotions. We don't have that training. So it's not necessarily just dealing with beliefs, it's supporting people to come back to their essence, to their truth, to who they really are. So removing beliefs allows you to have space to see what is most true, to see what is most right for you in this moment right now.
How do you do that? How do you get to that authentic self? Because I think that's where most people kind of in self-development, they talk about that authenticity, that creativity kind of way that we bring out the spirit in us, right? How do you get to that point?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I realized
shock therapy
through that works. I think I need to take a few steps back and paint a picture. So when I was 16 years old, I was involved in an armed robbery. So I wasn't on the robber's side. I was on the receiving end, on the victim's side. A part of me really wanted to be the robbers. Yeah, but I was at a friend's supermarket and a group of guys came in and they were shooting guns around, and they robbed the supermarket. They locked us in to a small little a room with 2 employees and 2 customers, shot a final bullet in the wall and left. And it was a traumatic moment. But until then, I didn't realize that it was traumatic. I lay down, we were laying down on the floor with our hands over our heads. And I remember after a minute or two, after the last bullet hit the wall, my body started shaking. Now, if you understand trauma, and I studied trauma, the body's natural system is designed to release trauma, and it does it by shaking. We see animals do that after they've a zebra been hunted by a lion. Once it gets away, it shakes its body off to release the excess trauma. That's why animals don't get sick in the wild. They don't get illness. They don't have bones, back problems, or anything like that, because they deal with the trauma. We haven't learned that. We don't have a culture supporting us to release trauma or deal with emotions or process emotions. So my body went into a state of shock, and I just started shaking. And that was my body's way of releasing the trauma, which I went into freeze mode the moment they came in. Yeah, we have 2 natural responses that the brain does. There's the fight response and the flight response. I went into flight and freeze at that time, but essentially my whole system shut down. So when I came back to awareness, my system started shaking to release the trauma. And then I remember the police officer asking us afterwards. We managed to break out and call our parents. I remember the police officer asking me later, do you need a psychologist or a therapist? Do you need some support? I was like, no, okay. Yeah, I was traumatized.
You didn't know.
I didn't know. Yeah. My parents didn't know either. Yeah. And but that's where the little Cypriot mindset was inside of me at the time. I'm okay. I'm a man. I can deal with things myself. I don't need support. I don't need. All is good. This is fun. This is normal.
This is your generational imprint.
Yeah. And we all, I believe all human beings, I don't know of any culture, westernized culture, that has a way of processing emotions. Yes, there are ways these days, but a lot of times therapy is a taboo. It's like, oh, you're doing therapy, it's not right. But looking back, I believe it would have been a necessity for me. I would have made it mandatory for a child going through that trauma to do some kind of therapy, some kind of processing of the emotion. And I actually don't want to call it therapy because there's a stigma on therapy. Yeah, don't make it wrong. So I realized that I had, on a psychological level, on a mental level, certain beliefs built up, certain fears built up, and certain emotions were suppressed. Anger was suppressed, fear was suppressed, sadness was suppressed, resentment, disappointment, all these things were suppressed. And what I do is I just buried them, carried on with life, which is what we normally do. Mm-hmm. Now, when those illnesses continue, they start to create noise in the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind starts to say, okay, this is the status quo, this is what's in me at the moment, so let me start attracting circumstances and events to confirm the internal reality. So my internal reality was traumatized, so I would attract outside events, people, places that would confirm that I have an internal reality of trauma. So people talk about the law of attraction. This is the law of attraction in reverse. Yeah, it's whatever we're resonating with on a deep subconscious level is actually what we're attracting. And the traumas, the sadness, things that we suppress, we end up attracting. People think, oh, I'm attracting it, I should push it away, I shouldn't be having it. But it's not about that. The attraction is happening. Our outside world is mirroring to us what's happening inside of us, so we can go inside and heal it. So if we start to look at life in that way and start to look at the symptoms on the outside, or people on the outside and circumstances on the outside, as indicators of something needing to be healed or transformed on the inside, then we have direct information saying, okay, there's something going on that I need to clear. Once that's cleared up, once it's processed, then you stop attracting that stuff. The people that are angry at you don't happen anymore. The people that push your buttons just don't show up. People start treating you nicer. You have more flow in your life. You feel happier. So that's what I started experiencing, but it took me a long time to get there. Yeah, so this was when I was 16, suppressed. My brother passed away in a car accident when I was 17, turning 18, suppressed, didn't deal with it. Yeah, mother at 25, suppressed, didn't deal with it. And eventually I started to learn that, okay, there's stuff that needs to come out through the process that I've done, through things that I've learned. So I started undergoing my own healing through immersing myself in personal development processes. And I can confirm, and that's why I do what I do. I can confirm that even in the last 3-4 years, the intensity and the depth of the work that I've done for myself, even the last 2 years, the last 6 months, I can literally say that I feel internally happier. I'm not the happiest person. Yeah, I'm not all the time happy. It's not possible. But compared to where I was, I'm carrying much less baggage. I'm much lighter internally. I get angrier less. I react less. I'm more loving, more caring, more of the time. So where I was like that 20% of the time, it's become 60, 70, maybe 80% of the time. So I really believe in what I do and the value of what I do. So and this was one of the things that kind of inspired me to start putting the information together that I have, because we don't have a manual, we don't have a process, we don't have a methodology to process our stuff. Yes, there's psychotherapy, yes, there's all these things, but I want to create something different for people to make it okay to be able to process emotions, to be able to, okay, we've had these circumstances when we were younger. While we're younger, let's deal with them, let's talk through them. In the old days when the churches began, they had confession. This was one of the purposes of what confession served. It's not to speak about your sins, it's to allow yourself, well, not only, but to allow yourself to speak to someone about things that weigh heavy on your heart, to let it out.
That's part of the healing, that's actually speaking it out.
Yeah.
So would you say that trauma that you have gone through was actually the catalyst to bring you to alchemize this process, to that you are the way you are because of the traumas that you've been through and how you dealt with them?
Yeah, I believe a lot of it has played a big part from the time I was born, even in the womb of my mother, because we even receive information while we're in the womb of our mother. So even thoughts that the mother's having. I'll give you an example. I'm jumping, but
that's fine. I love it.
I worked with a client. I've seen it in myself as well, but I've worked with a client quite recently that we've regressed back to the womb. And while she was in the womb, the mother was thinking, she was struggling. She didn't really want children because her freedom was going to be taken away from her. So she was having conflicted thoughts about the child. And the child started growing up, child who's my client, started growing up and feeling, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel like I belong, I don't feel loved by my mother. Of course, the mother accepted her. The mother loved her in her way, but she felt like something's missing. And when we took it back, we realized that the time that the mother got pregnant, she started feeling, the mother started feeling feelings and emotions of, now my life's gone. Now I don't feel like my freedom's gone, all of that. And those thoughts got passed down to the child, and a feeling of unworthiness began to develop.
So she internalized it, and she felt guilty for
she misinterpreted it.
Taking it. Imagine. This is why such practices as hypnotherapies and regressions, they're so valuable.
Highly valuable. Yeah.
It's just that intention. It's that intention to unveil and uncover, to really at that point in time to love that human being enough, to kind of like give them enough feedback so they may see themselves, because more often than not people just project their traumas.
Yeah.
That's all they do, and then they look at that person over there, and instead of actually admitting it that it's them that's creating that feeling, they go, that guy makes me feel unhappy, that person makes me this and that, and I'm a victim. And it's like, these are the old paradigms, right? This is what I call the old 3D paradigms, where it's like it's all based on fear, it's all based on lack, it's all based on not enough. And this client's story confirms that. And I do believe that practically every single person on the planet has this stored in their DNA, has this stored in their pain bodies inside that get activated every now and then when it's coming across the stimuli. And as you said so wisely, what we have inside is reflected on the outside. And each person lives their own personal reality. What I am interested in also to find out from your perspective, how do generations and how do, say, parents and grandparents come into this picture? How can you alchemize it and say, work on your beliefs enough that you don't repeat the same traumas that have been passed on to us for generations?
Wow, beautiful question. And very relevant. One of the works, the therapeutic methodologies that I trained in is specifically to deal with transgenerational trauma or illnesses or fears or beliefs. So we carry, as children, when a child is born, through the DNA, we receive not only the genetics of the parents, but also the psychological and emotional epigenetics. So the epigenetics is the information that the genes receive in order to activate or not activate a particular thought form or a particular emotion or a particular illness. So this was known through psychotherapy by observation, through when psychotherapists over the last 100 years have been observing their clients, and they're like, okay, there must be a passing down of generational trauma. And later on, experiments were done on mice, that a traumatized mouse has taken 4 generations of safe living conditions to heal from a trauma. So one trauma that the scientists have given to the mouse has taken 4 generations of offspring of that mouse to heal. So it was passed down, and they needed safe living conditions of 4 generations to heal. So that's just a little experiment on mice. And we have a number of case studies I have through my own clients, and with family constellation therapy, we're able to go into the family system of an individual and identify when the trauma originated and pass it back to the grandparent and begin the healing process.
How does that, so say for example, you would know that the trauma happened in the grandparent. So we could easily take war veterans as an example, right? Yeah. So they've gone, like my grandparents were, I could definitely be one of those examples, being Russian and all of that. My grandparents were in war, right? Then my dad, he was born with the survival born, or it was passed on, had the survival instinct. He constantly wanted to just protect and survive and make sure everybody had enough food and everybody had enough shelter, right? And that kind of like passed on, to me, and probably if I don't work on it, will pass on to my kids. But so say for example, you originate that trauma and it happened with your grandparent. Now you can't really go into your grandparent's psyche unless you do some spiritual work and to kind of go, okay, let's heal the situation, and so it doesn't go. How do you heal that? You heal that within, obviously.
Yeah. There's 2 ways. that I'm aware of. Maybe more. Two ways I'd like to share now. And one of them, the first one that I'll share, I haven't shared before. I haven't shared this awareness or perspective ever before. It is so when a parent has a child, the DNA, the genetics gets passed down. Now, the child, a lot of times the children irritate the parents. Yeah, they have behaviors. Who's a parent? Yeah, they have behaviors that push the parents' buttons. Now, what the children are doing right there, and this is where parents need to pay attention. As weird and as strange as woo-woo as it might sound, what the children are doing unconsciously is they're being loyal to their parents. They're being loyal to their parents' potential, the parents' hidden potential. And when the parent starts to look at the child and love the child for who they are and for that behavior, so if the child is being ignorant, angry, whatever it is, not focused, depressed, sad, if the parent looks at the child and starts to love the child for being that way and starts to see, okay, what is this child trying to mirror in my life? What about me? What about me and my potential am I not living? Then you get to see that the child is actually doing his job to support you, to be a better parent, to be a better human being, to live more of your potential, and not to suppress who you truly are.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Say, for example, it's me being the mother.
Yeah.
Say to what we can come across. There comes a moment where a child can lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in practically every single family that you see that it's this also. So the child lies, and you find out that they lie.
Okay.
So
your child lies, or a child. Sometimes.
Yes.
We all lie, by the way. From the age of maybe 6 months old, we start to develop mechanisms to get attention from our parents, especially when our parents are not showing the love that they did when we were 1 month, 2 months, 3 months old, and they're crying and we ignore them a little bit. We start to develop mechanisms to get attention and to get their love. So those are lies, they're not true. Yeah, they start to put on a funny face, or they start to cry and you look at the child and it's like play crying, not really crying. So some children, or a lot of children, have that behavior. You'll see they'll cry, they'll laugh, they'll scream, whatever. They're trying to get attention. So we start to develop that from a very young age. But coming back to, okay, so let's say your child lies. Yeah, not your child. We're speaking in general now.
Pretty obvious now, but okay.
It's okay. So let's say your child lies. I would have a look at, okay, why is the child lying? What is the child not telling the truth about? I would just, okay, what about me? I would just turn around to myself. Where am I not truthful in my life? What is this child of mine trying to mirror? Where am I not being true? Where am I not telling the truth? Who am I not being true to? Is it about, am I not being true to myself and my calling? Did I say I want to be a mother and or a father, and what I really want to be doing is traveling the world and being independent, but I'm being untrue to myself being a parent? Yeah, it could be a number of things, but it's for each individual to reflect and look, what is true for me? What am I hiding? What is being hidden? What is the secret that I'm holding on to? Yeah, and maybe you've looked into yourself and there isn't a lie, there isn't an untruth, or there isn't a secret, which would be very rare. But then I would look at, okay, what secrets did my parents hide? What secrets did my grandparents hide? What were they putting under the carpet and not exposing to the world? What behaviors do I have right now, or do I show right now that aren't fully me, that are maybe secretive? I'm hiding a little bit of who I really am. What part of me am I hiding? I would ask those kind of questions. And then you get to see, when you get those answers, you get to see the gifts that the child is actually bringing to you. And once you see the gifts, either the child will stop that behavior, or it'll stop triggering you, you'll find some way to address the child and be present with the child. Sometimes it's the child's lying because the child's looking to get attention, and it's the only way it knows. So the child might, once you give the child presence and say, please tell me the truth, and it could stop lying when you are present with the child. Sometimes it's that.
Yeah, the most amazing thing is I think presence is one of the most healing things you can do in any relationship.
Yeah.
Just by being there with them.
Absolutely.
You don't even necessarily need to say anything. You don't need to fix anything, but you can just be present. That's such an invaluable tool.
Yeah. It's one of the great healers. And a lot of us suffer from not being seen, not belonging. Yeah, we feel like we don't belong. We feel like we're not seen. And a lot of times it's because people don't allow themselves to be who they are, so they're not seen for who they really
now
are.
I understand. Okay, so it's basically like self-sabotaging to a degree, that you don't allow yourself to be yourself.
Yes.
And so you can't be seen for who you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But not only you don't allow yourself to be yourself, you may have developed a personality or a persona from a very young age, and that persona is not you. It's just a persona.
That's so interesting. You actually fabricated a personality.
We do that. We do that as human beings.
So that's, sorry, there's so many questions. But it's actually mind constructed personality that was safe enough at that point in time to take on.
Yes.
And it might not have anything to do with the authenticity of that person.
Correct. So some people will become a pleaser and be nice all the time and be kind, and they'll sacrifice themselves. I was working with a client the other day who was doing exactly that. She wasn't setting correct boundaries. So from a young age, she learned that I need to be the good girl. I need to be the one that the family comes to. This is how I get attention. Okay? This is how I feel loved when I feel accepted in my family unit. So she started being nice in her family, and people started to recognize, oh, she's the polite one, she's the kind one, she's the nice one, she's the pleaser. She always does whatever you need. And she got to a point where, and during our session, she said, I'll do it for them. I'll give it to them. I'll do it until we get to that last 5%, and then she says no. Like that last 5% is her protected time and her protected space. But by the time she got to that last 5%, all this anger and resentment has built up, that she drops this massive wall, and anyone that's in front of her will receive
cold serving,
cold, and she might even get angry or even be abrupt. So when she realized, the problem was she didn't set correct boundaries when she was younger, because she constantly needed to be the pleaser, and she never allowed herself to say no, to be stubborn. Yeah, a lot of times we say, oh, I shouldn't be stubborn, but sometimes stubbornness is important because it's a way of setting boundaries. So I'm going to say no, and I'm going to put my boundaries up. It's interpreted as stubbornness, but it's something. It's a way of putting up boundaries and not needing to be a pleaser, not being a pushover, not allowing people to do whatever they want with you. Yeah, at some point we've got to see, okay, this is my life, this is someone else's life, so we've got to draw the line. And she was self-sacrificing all of her life, and didn't know who am I, what is my life. So she developed this I'm a pleaser persona. All the time I'm doing things for others, making sure everybody else is okay. But what about me? Yeah, am I checking? Is anyone checking how I am? Am I okay? So the pleaser persona is what I'm talking about when we create this personality. That pleaser is not you. Yes, you can be kind, you can be nice, you can be caring, But sometimes you need to care for yourself and be kind to yourself and let other people wait, let other people care for themselves, let other people accept responsibility for their life, and you accept responsibility for yours. So sometimes we need to let go of that pleaser persona and identify, okay, who am I really? And who you are really is sometimes you need to allow yourself to be stubborn. Yeah, stubborn or
persevering,
persevering,
determined.
or determined, or not so kind, or not so.
You know how scary it is for a pleaser? It's a death of identity.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, and yeah, but that's not who we are. Yeah, being the pleaser is not who we are.
It's a behavior.
There's more to us. And when you start to allow yourself to accept that there's a lot more to you than just that persona that's been used to get attention, get love, protect yourself, whatever it may be in the past, then you start to let go of the false self, the untrue self, the untrueness, and you start to experience who you really are. And you start to feel safer in the world. You start to feel more joyful. You start to feel more connected to yourself. And a lot of people are suffering from not being connected to who they truly are because they believe they need to be this and not that. They need to be nice, never mean. They need to be kind, never cruel. They need to be positive, never negative. They need to be one-sided.
Belief. It's belief. Belief on top of the belief. So basically what you are saying is that if they innately felt enough being who they are, they wouldn't feel the need to distort themselves and kind of like defragment their energy by trying to maintain this personality that only gives them safety but not growth.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, because it's one of the traumas, I think, of the generations before us. And this is why I, again, as I said before, have so much respect for personal development, for people who take on personal development and really dedicate their time and their efforts. It's not easy being at the forefront of it and being the pioneers. And if you look back, it was like, back in those days, it was not Deepak Chopra, it still is, but starting off, Neil Donald Walsh and Robin Sharma when they first started off. Now, thankfully, there is more and more and more aware people. As I said to you before, there is that balance.
Yes, and it makes it easier. The more people that enter the path of personal development, it makes it easier on the rest.
Totally. But this is also that energetic, if we go deeper now to the same question, because everything that you say has so many layers, just like everything else. The depth of it that we can dig and go further is just infinite, right? But so what I wanted to say, I lost my thought there for a second.
The energetic.
The energetic, the part of the balancing it out, and the part of the trauma that, as you said before, it evaded my mind now, but it was deep. That's the thing about deep things. Sometimes they come and go, just because you're not used to that thought pattern, right? Balancing it down and taking on that responsibility. I think having to take on the responsibility for your own happiness and actually going, you know what, I'm going to be an example and I can help other people to be that authentic selves. That's like a hero's journey, I would say, to do.
Yeah. Which I think is something each of us will undergo at some point in our lives.
You think?
Yes, life is constantly evolving and expanding. So everybody's being called to higher levels of expression of who they are. So in their own way, deep or shallow, people enter some kind of a hero's journey.
You really think so?
Yeah.
But even like, say, for example, what fascinates me is that how people can maintain that personality, that safe personality, right? That they don't allow that personality to be shaken because they really don't. They're not committed to growth on the inside.
Yeah.
How do they? Because I do believe that hero's journey is something you call upon by making a choice to a degree.
Yeah. I believe people are called upon the hero's journey. Whether they take it or not is another question. And I think a lot of people are called by life's challenges, and they don't. Yeah, either they don't know, or they're not guided, or they're not ready, or they're just too attached to being who they are that they're not interested in any form of growth at all. They want their way, and they continue that way.
Slow death.
Yeah, but that's what happens as they age. They become more and more separate to themselves, more and more separate, not only to themselves. It starts with ourselves. We separate from our essence. We separate from our emotions. We separate from our thoughts. We separate from our physical
like
body.
A detachment to protect the emotional.
Yeah, and they become more and more this false personality, and less the whole person of who they really are. And then they start disconnecting from their family, and then they start disconnecting from society. So they might have friends, they might have connections, they might have all of this, but their behavior starts pushing people away. And internally, they feel lonely. They might have friends, they might go to parties, they might have money, they might have success, everything might look fantastic on the outside, but inside, lonely. And that's where people turn to addictions, they turn to food, they turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to sex, prostitution, all these things to try and get that fix, to try and fill in the loneliness.
Distract themselves from the pain, right? Because going inside is scary. They'd rather do something to fill it in on the outside.
Yeah. And the further and further you are from your truth, from who you are, the more stuff on the outside you'll need to fill in the gap. The more toys, the more stuff, the more activities. You're unable to be with yourself.
So there it is. That's the Consumerist Society.
Yes.
This is how it feeds into that say system, say that the American system or whatever, where consume.
Yeah.
Stay unhappy. You don't. There is that division, that strict division. Like if you look at the American society again, I'm kind of sidetracking there, but you kind of like they bank on the fact that you will stay needy and stay lonely so that they can sell more.
Exactly. And if you look at economics, look at the American economy, and they're in debt. Social systems are in, the social security is in debt, the medical system is in debt, the government is in debt. So there's a lot of debt. There's a lot of debt on the individual level. There's a lot of debt on the national level. Now, what does debt represent? We've consumed something, and we're planning to pay for it in the future. So we've brought money, value in from the future, and we're consuming it now.
So that's like a instant gratification.
Exactly.
It's a friend of mine. She says a very small loan with very big credit.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And that instant gratification is feeding the instant need to fill up something now, instead of waiting for the future, for growth, for expansion, for something. So we bring in our value from the future into now, and the people are in debt, the countries are in debt, but they're internally not happy, internally lonely, internally alone. Yeah. So it's being our loneliness on the inside is being mirrored by the debt that we have on the outside. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense, but it's almost like, to a degree, showing a human tragedy.
Yeah.
And this is why there is more people like you that are needed. Because how else? How else do you move forward but to look within and look at yourself? I believe, based on my experience, that everybody needs support in form of coaches, therapists, whatever, throughout their life. Just for the fact that you can talk things out, that is already some way, dealing with the trauma, healing the trauma.
Yeah.
So as you have accumulated so much experience, right, and as you have accumulated so much of that transformational value, do you have any books that you would be sharing with the world, or you have shared with the world? Anything you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm in the process of finalizing one book.
Mm-hmm.
I've started writing. I'm busy with 3 books at the moment. The first one I parked. The second one is more of a long-term project on putting together everything I learned about knowing yourself. How do we operate as human beings? How does the mind work? How do emotions work? Because I've seen it from a number of perspectives, and everyone's got a piece of the pie, but no one's got a manual or a guide of that can be given to your 8-year-old son or daughter or 12-year-old that saying, okay, this is how your emotions work from these different perspectives. This is how your thoughts work from these different perspectives. This is what happens in certain friendship circles. This is when you're having challenges in family. This is why it happens. We don't understand, and we're just reactive all the time and living in trial and error kind of life. But I believe we're moving to a life by design rather than the trial and error kind of life in the way we're evolving. So it's a life of being more self-responsible. So one of the books is going to address knowing yourself, understanding who you are, how we operate as human beings. The current one that I'm working with is to deal with transforming feelings of worthlessness. This is the one I want to bring out because I want to bring a short, easy guide that supports people to deal with worthlessness. I had a client a few months ago, and he kind of gave me the inspiration to deal with this because he was feeling worthless, and he couldn't understand why. And I thought, there's a lot of people that have feelings of worthlessness at different times, and I would explain to him this and I would explain that, and I thought, what if I just put it all together in a book, in a guide, and people can understand how these feelings of worthlessness happen. Why do they happen? Because it's not only coming from one place. You're actually at your core, you're not worthless. There's belief systems that may have been accumulated from a young age, and these belief systems may make you feel worthless because you might have a belief system. I'm worthless. I'm not worthy. Like this daughter of the woman that the mother that didn't really want a child and felt her life's going to stop now that she's having a child, and the daughter picked up that feeling and felt, I don't belong. I'm not valuable. I'm worthless. So it could come from belief systems. Feelings of worthlessness could come from comparison, when we compare ourselves to our parents, when we compare ourselves to other people on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, or all of those. And a lot of people do that. Competition. We can compare ourselves to who we think we should be. Another layer of comparison. We can compare ourselves to people we see in marketing, women looking at themselves in a magazine and thinking, oh, this is the ideal model. But they have no idea that the model on the magazine has been photoshopped and changed. And and there's no reality there anymore. So we can become unworthy or feel feelings of worthlessness through comparison. We can feel unworthy from if you have a dominant father. So there's different areas to feel where we can feel unworthy. Sometimes your diet is wrong, and as a result of eating the wrong foods, your energy is low, and that affects your belief about yourself. Just because your energy is low.
It's just as simple as that.
It can be as simple as that.
Does it not always then come back to choices?
I would say before choices, it comes back to awareness, because some people are not aware of what the right choices are. They're not aware of what's influencing them. It could be choice would come in if you set a goal. A lot of people set goals that are unrealistic, outside their comfort zone, outside what they're capable of doing, and the mind starts to give you feedback, telling you you're not worthy. You start feeling anxious. You start feeling fearful. You start feeling upset. This is feedback coming in from the mind, telling you, the thoughts, telling you that you're not worthy of this big goal because it's unrealistic. It's either not aligned and congruent to who you are, or it's too big and not achievable in such a time frame. For example, a person that's earning €1,000 a month all of a sudden says, I want to earn €10,000 the next month. They've never done it before. They don't have a plan. They got the idea from some guru online that says, we can 10x your income. and there's no strategy, there's no support, there's no emotional, psychological build up to that. They haven't built their muscle, they're not entrepreneurs. There's a lot of things missing, but they want this extra 10,000 euros in the next month. And their minds start feeling anxious, their mind starts saying you're not worthy, your confidence is low, That's feedback telling you that you're unrealistic about this goal. If you reduce that goal to, let's earn an extra 100 this month, the person's psychology is instantly going to say, that's possible. I'm confident. I'm worthy of an extra 100 euros. Yeah. So sometimes the feelings of unworthiness are self-created because the goals that we set are not realistic, not aligned, or way outside of our comfort zone. So that's another way we can.
But that's again with the awareness. That's again with so it's basically however you develop yourself from the inside, it straight away reflects on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I want to bring together in this book, is to share with people specifically dealing with unworthiness, because I believe there's a lot of people that suffer, even very financially successful, well-off people, even people that with great businesses, they still suffer with unworthiness. And I want to just put that out there to support people to just understand, okay, this is going on with me. Yeah.
This is incredible. So looking forward to seeing the books, to reading the books in the future. Amongst other topics that I'm sure we can still pick up on, but now we're pressed for time. Has been such a pleasure listening to your experiences, listening to your information. You bringing your presence here, your heart, your mind. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm looking forward to more. That would be great if we did expand this further, and we will keep everybody posted on the upcoming developments that you have happening with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Julia. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your presence and your space. Warm, welcoming.
Such a pleasure. This is what we're here for. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave below and stay tuned, because there's lots more to come. Bye.